Welcome to my career's final summative evaluation on how to become a physicist.
I'm a physics enthusiast who has never been a physicist and will probably never become one himself.
Hey, at least I've performed some experiments before. Anyways, before we begin, one should ask the question, what is a physicist? A physicist should not be confused with a physician. A physicist is a scientist who works in the physics field and studies how matter, energy, and other strange particles of all shapes and sizes interact. A physician practices medicine and is more likely to be concerned with biology and physics. We are going to be talking about physicists who study physics. Another analogy that describes what a physicist is comparing a physicist to a psychic. A psychic may try to predict the future using supernatural means, while a physicist uses their knowledge of physics and mathematics to solve practical problems, develop new technologies, and perform experiments in a particular field. An example of this would be to model the path of a pen spinning in the air and predicting which particular time periods would be the best to catch it when it is more or less parallel with your hand instead of having it jab your hand when it lands on the pointy end. Alright, now that we know what a physicist is, let's take a look at what skills a physicist needs. To begin, a physicist should develop creative ideas and theories based on observation and investigate the cause. They should be performing experiments based on their theories and analyze the results with various equipment. They may or may not publish a research paper on the experiments, but they'll proceed by perhaps rethinking their theory or changing some particular variable to continue testing their theory. A physicist should be honest with their results and perform trustworthy and reliable work. Communication is a must if you work on a big project with a team, and remember to always follow safety measures. Speaking of safety, being a physicist can become a very dangerous job. Common risks may include electric shocks, burns, and even explosions.
Let me give you a taste of how dangerous it can be to be a physicist. Take a look at these two pictures. Do any of them seem the least bit threatening? Well, if we took the first one, you could touch it any way you want without any risk of being electrocuted. See? Watch. Holy cow! Dang it! I got the charged capacitor instead of the uncharged capacitor, which just shows how hard it is to discern between whether a capacitor is charged or not. Which is why, kids, you should always discharge your stinking capacitors before you touch both leads. There, now it's safer. But you should never do this. Moral of the story is always be careful when you're in a physicist's lab. Now back to the PowerPoint.
Other potential dangers may include frostbites in cold environments, getting poisoned, getting injured from all sorts of causes, and, the oddball risk of falling into a particle accelerator and turning into Sandman. Physics itself is composed of many subfields, which branch out to even more subsets. Here, I have listed some interesting research fields you could possibly consider if you'd ever like a job as a physicist. This includes some of the biggest objects that are known to us, including stars, galaxies, and the like, down to the smallest quarks and other interesting phenomena associated with those small particles. The courses one should be taking should all have some level of connection with science. The big three are definitely going to be the courses immediately associated with physics, namely physics, surprise, chemistry, and biology. English is mandatory for all high school students, but it is strongly recommended that physicists learn English well because you are likely to be giving speeches to your fellow physicists, writing lots of scientific reports, and the like. Mathematics. Mathematics is going to be very important for physicists because you're basically going to be solving mathematical equations all day and performing all sorts of calculus and maybe analyzing lots of statistics. So taking those two courses and maybe even a bit of functions will be very helpful for when you do become a physicist. Moving on to post-high school, It is usually suggested that you go to university and try getting a bachelor's degree because that is the bare minimum to officially becoming a physicist, though having a master's or PhD will definitely give you a better shot at jobs. Passing grades are usually B's or higher, so it's not a very good idea to be slacking behind. And another tip would be to get your research projects done with a professor or some local company during your university years so that you have the experience when you do start applying for jobs. The salary ranges when you do get a job are usually between 50,000 to about 170,000 depending on where you are, which is a pretty big range, and the salary does pay pretty well. Alright, moving on to job outlook. The job outlook for physicists seems more or less steady. It's a pretty linear path and doesn't look as if there will be any major changes anytime soon. Employment is projected to grow about 8 to 9% in the coming decade, which is about average compared to the rest of the industry. Based on this graph over here, we can see that there are about 38,000 physicists in 2022, and according to our statistics, there should be an increase of around 400 physicists, which does match more or less to about 38.5k.
Why are you interested in becoming a physicist if the job growth is so low, the dangers are so hard to spot, and the content is so difficult?
Nice question, and I'm glad you asked. Physics is a very, very wide and exciting field in which one can participate in. I believe an occupation as a physicist will allow for an awesome experience because it allows me the freedom to play with original ideas and theories. I would otherwise be constrained to pondering these ideas in my own time if, I became a doctor or something. I'd be limited to only becoming a theoretical physicist with lesser opportunities to perform experiments. Of course, being a physicist is more than simply thinking up theories and cooking up experiments. Being a physicist means pushing the limits of our current knowledge to the next level and cooperating with colleagues by sharing ideas and exploring the unknown. I should also mention here that I find mathematics a very entertaining subject, and the pleasure you feel after solving a difficult yet practical problem is something I'd likely not find anywhere else. Being a physicist allows for hands-on learning, and I'm a kinesthetic learner, so I would find this job very suitable for getting tasks accomplished.
Well, that's a mouthful for a noob who has no idea what he's talking about.
After all the research I've done and all the things I've learned, I think being a physicist just might be what I choose for my career. Anyways, that's about it. That was my career's final summative evaluation on how to become a physicist, and I'll see you in my next video.